Western Europe is in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave. Some places have reached 111 degrees Fahrenheit. 6 countries have issued their highest-level heat warnings. People are losing their lives, and the reason might be more complicated than anyone could expect. France put most of the country under a red alert. The country's average temperature reached 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Not so extreme, but it's the average across the entire country day and night. In some places, temperatures climbed to 109 degrees Fahrenheit. It got so hot that 2 of Paris's most famous landmarks, the Louvre Museum and the Eiffel Tower, had to close earlier than usual. The buildings simply aren't designed to handle that kind of heat. More than half of France is under the highest heat warning. Tens of thousands of homes lost electricity. There's a massive risk of wildfires, and firefighters are already battling devastating forest fires. Since the heat wave began, at least 40 people have lost their lives in heat-related incidents. The rest of Europe isn't faring much better. The United Kingdom recorded one of its hottest Junes ever. Forecasters say that temperatures in certain places could reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Some cities have closed schools because classrooms became too hot. Power systems are struggling to keep up with all air conditioners and fans. Hospitals are treating more and more people with heat-related issues. Spain saw its highest average daily temperature since 1950. In May alone, 101 people in the country lost their lives because of heat. That's more than ever before for that month. Italy faces the same problem. Much of the country sits under the highest heat warning. The heat dries out the land. Some parts of Germany worry about drought. Local authorities have asked people to save water because supplies might run out quickly if the hot weather continues. The danger doesn't stop there. Dry grass and forests can catch fire much more easily during a heat wave. Some German cities have already banned barbecues to lower the risk of starting wildfires. The Netherlands has also warned people to prepare. Weather officials issued an orange alert. This means dangerous weather is likely to arrive. Temperatures could climb to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Belgium faces almost the same forecast. Much of the country remains under an orange heat alert, with temperatures potentially reaching 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists have warned about this for decades. As more greenhouse gases build up in the atmosphere, they trap more of the sun's heat, like adding another blanket around Earth. The extra heat has to go somewhere, and Europe has become one of the fastest warming places on the planet. In fact, on average, Europe is warming about twice as fast as the rest of the world. That means heat waves like this will become more common. They'll last longer and reach even higher temperatures. You might be wondering why this keeps happening to Europe. You'd think every part of the planet would warm at about the same speed. Instead, Europe is warming faster than any other continent on Earth. The whole planet is now about 2.5 degrees warmer than it was before people started burning huge amounts of coal, oil, and gas. Meanwhile, Europe has warmed by about 4.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Part of the answer is surprisingly simple. Europe has a lot more land than ocean, and land heats up much faster than water. When you walk barefoot on a beach during summer, the sand burns your feet, while the ocean right next to it still feels cool. Water can soak up a huge amount of heat without getting really hot. Land can't. Europe also stretches far into the Arctic, and the Arctic is changing incredibly fast. Snow and ice normally act like giant mirrors. They bounce a lot of the sun's energy back into space. But as temperatures rise, that snow and ice melt away. Underneath them, there's dark ground and dark ocean water. Those darker surfaces absorb much more sunlight, which creates even more warming. That extra heat melts even more ice, and this vicious cycle repeats again and again. There's another thing most people never think about. Europe has seriously cleaned up its air by cutting pollution from factories and power plants, and that's great news for people's lungs. But some of that pollution was kinda good. It reflected a bit of sunlight back into space. Now the air is cleaner and more sunlight reaches the ground. This effect isn't so powerful compared to greenhouse gases, but it adds even more warming. Besides, right now, a huge area of high pressure is sitting over Western Europe. Meteorologists call it a heat dome. Imagine putting a giant glass bowl upside down over a city on a sunny day. The hot air underneath can't escape very easily. At the same time, the high-pressure system pushes air downward. When you squeeze air into a smaller space, it gets hotter, like a bicycle pump gets warm when you use it. That high pressure also clears away clouds, so sunlight pours onto the ground from morning until evening. And then, there's one more piece to the puzzle. Recently, winds have been pulling even hotter air north from the Sahara Desert. Then the heat dome trapped that air over Europe, so the continent ended up with the worst possible combination. Hot air from Africa, non-stop sunshine, and a giant lid in the atmosphere keeping all that heat locked in place. We should expect the next 5 years to break even more heat records. What used to count as an extreme heat wave is starting to become a normal summer. Are Europe's cities ready for this? That's a big problem. Heat takes the lives of more people in Europe than floods, wildfires, or storms. The World Health Organization states that every year, more than 175,000 people across Europe pass away from heat-related causes. Yet, authorities still don't treat extreme heat waves like other natural disasters. They often react only after temperatures become dangerous. Unlike hurricanes or floods, many countries still don't have a clear long-term plan for dealing with heat. Luckily, it's changing. Last year, the United Nations worked out a new global plan that might help countries prepare for extreme heat. The main goal is to treat heat waves as a real disaster instead of just another hot summer day. But fixing the cities themselves is much harder. Europe spent centuries building roads, homes, and public spaces for a cooler climate. Some streets were laid out long before cars even existed. Nobody back then expected summers with temperatures above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, so nobody designed cities to handle them. So now they're filled up with dark roofs, brick buildings, concrete, and asphalt. All of those materials act like giant sponges for heat. They soak up sunlight all day, then slowly give that heat back after the sun goes down. That's why walking through the middle of a city on a hot evening can actually feel worse than standing in the countryside at the same time. Even after sunset, the heat has nowhere to go. In many places, downtown areas stay up to 7 degrees hotter than the neighborhoods around them. To deal with this issue, Paris wants to plant about 170,000 trees. It'll help create more shade. Marseille is ripping out pavement in some old public squares and replacing it with plants and grass. Other cities are painting streets with lighter colors, so they reflect more sunlight instead of soaking it up. Some are changing building rules so new homes stay cooler and don't depend so much on air conditioning. But so far, it's a bit like putting a bandage on a broken leg. The real problem hasn't gone away. Europe still burns huge amounts of oil, gas, and coal every day. Cars, airplanes, factories, and power plants keep sending greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. On average, one person in the European Union is responsible for about 10 tons of greenhouse gases every year, while the global average is only about 5.5 tons. In many cases, it's still cheaper to fly than to take a train. Cities still don't have enough cooling centers where people can escape the dangerous heat. Many new buildings could become unbearably hot in just a few decades. And many older people who live alone still don't get regular check-ins during heat waves, even though they're the most likely to pass away from them. The European Union plans to roll out a new climate strategy by the end of 2026. It's supposed to help countries prepare for more extreme weather. Alarmingly, the weather is changing much faster than Europe is, and every summer, that gap gets a bit bigger.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.